Forward and recite a loud salawat. Please, move forward. Everybody, please. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad bulandar salawat. Pehले आगे आइए तो फिर वो मजलिस स्टार्ट होगी, प्लीज. नारा तकबीर, नारा रिसालत, या रसूल अल्लाह, नारा हैदरी, नारा हैदरी, हुसैनियत जिंदाबाद, हुसैनियत जिंदाबाद, यजीदियत मुर्दाबाद, यजीदियत मुर्दाबाद. और मोहम्मद वाले बैत मोहम्मद बुलंदतर सलावत. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद. अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम. बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन. अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अशरफिल अंबिया व सय्यिदिल मुरसलीन व हबीबिल इलाहिल आलमीन अबिल कासिम मुहम्मद. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद व अला अहलि बैतिहि अत-तय्यिबीन अत-ताहिरीन अल-मासूमीन मुंतजबीन अल-मुंतखबीन अल-मज़लूमीन अल-ग़ुरर अल-मयामीन सियमा बक़ियतिल्लाहि फ़िल अरबीन व हुज्जतिही अलल ख़लाइक़ अजमईन सय्यदना व इमाम ज़मानिना व साहिब निअमतिना व वली अम्रिना महदी हाज़िल उम्मह व तऊस अहलिल जन्नह अल-हुज्जत इब्न अल-हसन अल-अस्करी फ़िदा व अरवाहुल आलमीन. सल्लल्लाहु Inshallah, continuing on with the series of our lectures, a few different things I would like to discuss today. But the consensus of yesterday's lecture felt a bit rushed, but it was about the way you bring up your children, the way you bring up the youth. Inshallah, in today's lecture, I'd like to talk about a few different things. The main thing is seeking knowledge, gaining knowledge, and then how to use that knowledge. So we begin, there is a verse in the Quran in chapter 39 verse 9 where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, are those who have knowledge like those who do not have knowledge? It leaves it with a question mark, for surely there is a difference. Now when we discuss our religion and when we talk about the greatness that we have, there's a lot of things that we can point towards, there's a lot of things that we can do. But gaining knowledge, attaining knowledge, and making sure you get the correct knowledge, and then instilling that knowledge in your actions is something that we learn from the Ahlul Bayt. Generally, when it comes to knowledge, we've got examples throughout the Ahlul Bayt. We've got examples that we can use, examples that we can implement. Tonight, we'll talk about a few examples that we have generally within the Ahlul Bayt. But to begin, the first ever verse that was revealed within the Holy Quran was Iqra, read. There's an emphasis on that. Living in today's society especially, we gain knowledge within the Islamic sector. Alhamdulillah, that's great. But do not forget how much our Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet, and even the Quran has told us about various other knowledges as well. When it comes, we are the followers of the fiqh of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Who matched him in knowledge? Every single question that would be asked towards him, he would answer in such a beautiful way. Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Prophet. But we'll start with a little bit about the Prophet. I'd like to talk about a story with the Prophet. One of the misconceptions that we have is that they say that the Prophet was illiterate, or that the Prophet gained Islam at the age of 40 and that he didn't know that he was going to be a prophet. And all of a sudden one day he seen Jibreel and didn't know what to do. Our main reply back to that, the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created was the nur and the light of this Prophet. This entire world was seen. He noticed every single creation. He's not going to be scared when he sees Jibreel, but he was there when Jibreel was being created. He's not going to hold back and say, I don't know about prophethood, or I don't know what I'm going to do. Because he was a seal of all the prophets. We all accepted the prophethood of this prophet, even before we came into this world. As we're going through our life,
We don't remember the life before this. Just as when you're in this world, we might not remember this when we're in the next. But his Prophet was created. Hadith al-Qudsi says on many incidences when it talks about the creation. And it mentions that everything was created out of the love of the five. So there's no doubt that we have that our Prophet was a Prophet from the moment he was created. Now where's the evidence to back that? Where is the hadith to back that? When a Prophet becomes a Prophet, somebody attests to his prophethood. Somebody gives a witness towards his prophethood. We've got a narration within our books and the books of the Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat, and it's something that there is no doubt about. And it states that one day the Prophet was sitting there and the companions began to ask him, Ya Rasulullah, how long were you a Prophet? He said, 14,000 years before the creation of Adam, I was a Prophet. They said, okay, is there anybody to support this? Is there anybody to step forward and attest to this? That's when Amir al-Mu'mineen stood up. And he says, I bear witness that he was a Prophet 1400 years before Adam was created. In fact, I was an Imam while Adam was between mud and water. We've got a lot of narrations that we have. There's a lot of misconceptions that we have. But generally, coming back towards the Prophet, he lived his life in such a way where he showed his character. He showed exactly who he was before this revelation. He showed the world that there was no doubt that he was going to be the greatest man to walk this earth. The misconception of him not being able to read and write, it was the Arabs at that time that were going through illiteracy. They couldn't read and write. And the reason why our Prophet stood out, the reason why the Quran is a miracle that lives until today, is because the poetic justice that was narrated within this book. Poetry that even till today, there is a challenge from the Quran. That if there is anybody that can bring a single verse like this forward, bring it. If there's anybody that can replicate a verse like this, bring it. 1400 years have passed, no one has been able to do that. This is the miracle of the Prophet. The Prophet split the moon in half. He did many miracles. This one miracle that is with us today, you cannot show us a single Quran in any Muslim household today that has a single letter of a difference between two books. Not a single one. If this isn't a miracle, what is? We know Chinese whispers. We know how you say something to one person, by the time it gets to the third person, it changes. 14 centuries have passed, and it's come towards us today that it is still there as a miracle. And when it comes to educating, when it comes to education, we need to put a stronghold on this. We need to make sure that our children are being brought up Islamically, but at the same time with education. The secular education within this country is just as important as your religious education. Islam is important. This education comes within the umbrella and the fold of this religion of Islam. Look throughout the history of how the Ahlul Bayt instilled knowledge within their household. Look at Amir al-Mu'mineen, as you mentioned yesterday. He would allow Imam Hassan and Hussein to answer. He would allow them to speak about these things. He would allow them to gain knowledge. There's no doubt that the answer probably would not have been known by Amir al-Mu'mineen. Of course it would. But he encouraged the youth. He encouraged them to step forward. He encouraged them to answer these questions. So throughout history you will notice on many occasions the Ahlul Bayt instilled this, that education is a vital part. Education is very important. We can't stress this point enough. We will spend money on our children's education, but then don't neglect the religious education on the side as well. One of the rights of your children, they should know the Quran. One of the rights of your children, they should love the Ahlul Bayt. So it's a balance that you have to create between the two. It is a balance that you have to bring towards this. Seeking knowledge from the cradle to the grave is a hadith from the Prophet. You can never be too old One thing that we have as a misconception is they say you can't start. Let's talk about the Quran. We might be at a stage within our lives, we might not be able to read it, but that's okay. From the cradle to the grave. Alhamdulillah, we're not in the graves. Take a step. Even if you have to start from the beginning. There's no shame in that. No one's looking down upon you for doing that. Just take the smaller steps to gain the bigger goal. We have to be able to read the Quran in order to understand this beautiful religion. There's a lot of things that you can do. I'm pretty sure here you've got a Maulana, there's educational centers around, there's online as well. But even if you have to do it on an own individual basis, especially talking to the youth, just start with the Qaeda. It doesn't matter even if you have to start with Alif, Ba, Ta. Start it. Make a promise to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Start it from today. He will guide you, there's no doubt about that. But start somewhere. Start by bringing this in. Start by taking those steps so that you can have the better attaining in the goal. I'd like to talk a lot about Imam Sajjad today, especially after Karbala. I'd like to speak about this personality after the events of Karbala. He went through a lot of trials and a lot of tribulations. And it was vital for him to make sure that the message of his father did not go in vain. That the message and the implementation of the sacrifice of Karbala was not forgotten. Because remember, Ashura happened on a day. Sayyidah Zainab and this Imam then carried on this message. They educated the people and brought them towards the truth. Let's try and understand this a bit more. You've just killed the grandson of the messenger. At the moment, how do you think the Muslims' mindset was? How do you think the Muslims were thinking? The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was something they might not be able to turn back to. You've committed an act so great, none like it has ever happened. How do you turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The Imam showed us this. When he came back to the city of Medina, he would start off by purchasing a lot of slaves. And then he would educate them. Then he would free them. They would then travel across the world and spread the true message of the Ahlul Bayt. We are a minority within the Islamic denominations and sects. But the truth, you don't look at numbers. You can have the entire congregation of the Muslims on one side. You can have Amirul Mu'mineen on the one side. I don't need to answer this question. You know where the truth is. You know where it is on the scales. So even though we are a minority, that does not make that much of a difference. Look at the history that we have. Understand the history that we have. So he would purchase slaves, bring them within his household. He would then educate them. Once he educates them, he would then release them to go and spread this message. But he needed to do something with his own actions as well. He needed to show the people as well. A very famous narration that we have is that when the Imam was sitting down, one of his workers within his house brought hot soup towards him. He brought the hot soup towards him and accidentally spilt that soup on the Imam, burning his clothes and partially of his skin. How would we react in that situation? He looks at the Imam looks at him. This person is now reciting a verse from the Quran in which it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who show patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who protect themselves from anger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who freeze people in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Imam would look at him and say, I have forgiven you and you are free to go. It's not the fact that the Imam replied this way. It was the fact that the worker within the house of the Imam is talking Quran towards the Imam. And the Imam would then instill this within the workers. Another beautiful story we have is the Imam was sitting down one day. He called one of his workers. He didn't reply. The Imam called him again. He didn't reply. The Imam called him the third time. He came towards the Imam. The Imam says, what's the matter? Did you not hear me? He said, I did hear you. The Imam says, then why didn't you respond back to me? He said, never have we been in the house of a master where he calls us the first time and we don't come, except that we get hit, except that we get beaten, except that we get humiliated. Here we are in the house of yourself. You've called us. We didn't respond. We came towards you. And the first thing you say is everything okay? Did you hear me? Look at the way the Imam did this. And he needed to spread this message then in this particular way. Now we always talk about the 12th Imam emerging. We always talk about the guidance and the Savior that is coming. Prepare ourselves for him as well. The last thing that we want is for the Imam to look towards us and say, you are not one of my followers. It's something that once you say it, you hear it, you feel the effect. But try to think about this in your own daily lives. Try to think about this when you're outside of the masjid environment. Try to think about this when you're at home, when you're sitting with your family members, when you are in schools or universities or in the workplace. Just try to think, implement in your mind, the Hussein of today is still alive. He's waiting for me. What am I going to do? We say on a lot of incidences, if we were in Karbala, we would do this, we would do that. And like I said before, there's no doubt, I'm sure we would. But there is a Hussein today. Let's do something to bring ourselves towards him. A man like me will never give allegiance to a man like you, the Imam says to Yazid. Implement that in today's time. Where would Abu Abdullah be today? Who would he be standing up against? Being silenced whilst oppression is going on, you are part of that oppression. Think about what's going on in the world today. Think about the calamities that are befalling within the world today. Where would he be standing? And then you stand there as well. We are human beings, we make mistakes, that's understandable. But where would he be today? Stand towards that position. And try to implement that as well. Coming back to education in the Battle of Badr, for example, after this battle took place, we have a narration within our books as well as others that when the Prophet had the captives taken towards himself, he made a deal with them. He said that if there's anybody here that can read and write, I will free you from this captivity, provided that you can teach 10 people within my army to read and write. How do we release slaves? Look at the way the Ahlul Bayt are doing this. They're leaving the Ahlul Bayt, but somehow they're coming back towards the Ahlul Bayt as well. So many stories that we can narrate throughout history. So many incidences that we can look upon where the Ahlul Bayt would show themselves in a beautiful manner. Let's talk about Imam Hassan. He's the Khalif of the time. He's in the city of Kufa. A person enters. The Imam approaches him. He doesn't know who this person is. He's just heard about this person. When this incident occurs, they say that the Imam says to him, is there anything that you need? He says, what do you want? The person sends a curse upon Amirul Mu'mineen. This is the son of Amirul Mu'mineen. Yet he replies back by saying, oh Muslim, have you read the Quran? Yes, I have. He mentions a verse within the Quran. Do you know who this is referring to? Do you know who this is talking about? He would say, yes, Bani Umayyah. They are the Ahlul Bayt. Look at the misconception. Look what's going on here. The Imam didn't just reply back and say, no, that's us. He mentioned another verse. He mentioned another verse. So many verses within the Quran on the Ahlul Bayt. He mentioned all these verses to that person. The person is now in his mind, of course he's thinking, what's going on? He's just talking like this to me? Then the Imam would say to him, do you need a place to stay? Are you tired? Are you hungry? Do you need some water? Maybe you've had an argument with your wife and you've come out. You're in a city that you don't know anybody. Maybe you need to rest somewhere. My house is available towards you. Then he began thinking, what is this? So he would say to him, who are you? He would say, I am the son of that man that you were speaking about in the beginning. That is my father. When you speak about it like this, these people turn back towards the Ahlul Bayt. They turn back towards this path. Now tonight we'd like to remember Ummul Baneen. But before we get on the Masayib, I want to talk about Ummul Baneen as well. She's the mother of Al-Fadl al-Abbas, But look at the way she raised the kids. Look at the way she raised 4 valiant warriors. Look at how they echo throughout history. A lot of things that she did. When Amirul Mu'mineen lost the Holy Lady of Light, he went to his brother Aqil, who was a master of genealogy. He knew which tribe was known for which trait. So he spoke to him and he said, "Oh brother, find for me a woman whose tribe is known for their bravery, for their valor, who's known to be courageous." Aqil was a master of genealogy. He knew exactly which tribe was known for what. He then suggested this woman, Baneen, but her name was Fatima. It wasn't Baneen. We call her Baneen as the mother of sons. There's a reason why we say this. Today I focused more on Baneen, then comes into the Masayib of Baneen, because as we're moving forward, we also have to start remembering what happened in Karbala. And a lot to cover. We have to mention the personalities within the incident of Karbala. Mention them as well before we talk about their Masayibs, so that we understand a little bit more about them. We can talk about Baneen. Yes, we will shed a tear for Baneen, no doubt. But let's talk a little bit about her first, so that when the Masayib of Baneen actually comes, we can connect with her. And the concept of tawassul as well, if you need something, ask in the name of Baneen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not say no to you. She gave a sacrifice like no one else. Baneen, try this. If you want to implement it in your life, try it tonight. Think of something that you want. Anything at all. Think about your health, your family, a lot of things that we go through in life. Each individual, on your own accord, think about something. Then later on in the Masayib, I want you to remember that something and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the name of Baneen. There is no doubt that you will get that, and I say that with absolute certainty. There is no doubt that you will get what you want. This is Baneen. So when she married Amirul Mu'mineen, she came into the household where 4 children already existed. You had Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, Sayyidah Zainab and Kulthum. They were young at the time. They grew up without their actual mother. But Baneen made sure they did not feel this. And one of the reasons for this is as soon as she got married and came to the house of Amirul Mu'mineen, before she came inside, she stopped Amirul Mu'mineen and she said, "Oh my master, Abul Hassan, I have a request. A newlywed bride is coming into her home. What could her request be?" "What is the request?" "Do not call me Fatima." The reason, the mother, or my master, the woman is the leader of the entire women in the world. Her name was Fatima. I don't want Hassan and Hussein to hear that name and then think about their mother. So what shall I call you?
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
What shall I call you? Baneen, the mother of sons. When she came into the household, she lived her life by making a distinction. These are the Ahlul Bayt. We are their followers. She instilled this within Abul Fadl al-Abbas. She made sure, she said to, "Oh Abbas, if Hussein is standing, you're sitting. If Hussein is sitting, you're standing ready to serve him." She raised them in such a way, coming back to 2 lectures ago, the education as well as the rights of the children. She instilled this within Abbas and the other sons that she had as well. She came into this household, she grew up with them. There's times where Abul Fadl al-Abbas was there, but in her heart was Hussein. In her mind was Hussein. She was breathing at all times nothing but Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. She had an attachment to him as well. She practically raised him. But in her mind, this is the master. We are here to serve them. We are here to serve them. So when the Ahlul Bayt are now leaving, Baneen is at a stage where she didn't go. She didn't go with the Ahlul Bayt. Baneen stayed back with Sughra. She stayed at home. So when they're leaving, every day in her mind she is thinking, is Hussein coming back? She is waiting for the news, is Hussein coming back? Every day that a caravan would pass, she would ask, has Hussein come back? Has Hussein come back? Yet one day the news does arrive. One day the news arrives in such a way, Ya Baneen. The news arrives that a poet by the name of Bishr one day enters into Medina. He then says to everybody there, Ya Ahle Yathrib, ala muqam lakum biha, qutil al-Husayn fi Karbala. O people of Yathrib, get out of your houses and leave, for Hussein has been killed in Karbala. At this moment they say that Baneen was in towards a house. She was holding a baby by the name of Fazl, the son of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. So Baneen hears this. So she comes out and asks everybody, what is this news? What is this commotion? Why is everybody gathered together? They would say, a man is here with the news. So she would look at this person and say, who are you? How does she reply back? How did this person say to Baneen? He would ask somebody, who is this lady? They would say, she is Baneen. She then begins to think, أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ لَكِ الْعَجْرِ يَا Baneen بِوَلَدَكِ الْجَعْفَرِ. May Allah give you patience, O Baneen, on the martyrdom of your son Ja'far. She would say, I did not ask you about Ja'far, Ya Bishr. Tell me about Hussein. Where is Hussein? He would then say, أعظم الله لك الأجر يا البنين بمصابنا بولد العبد الله. May Allah give you patience, O al-Baneen, on the martyrdom of your son of Abdullah. She would say to him, are you not hearing what I am saying? O stranger that has come to give poetry, I am asking you about my son Hussein. He would then say, بِوَلَدِكِ لَأَبِلْ فَضْلِ الْعَبَّاسِ. They say at that moment Baneen began to shake. She was holding a baby in her hand. This baby left her hand and fell onto the floor. Somebody would pick the child up. Baneen would then ask. She would not ask what happened to Abbas. She would look and say, I did not ask you this, O Bishr. Tell me about my son Hussein. Bishr would then, with a deep breath at that moment, mention to Baneen بِقَتْلَةِ Aba Abdillah il-Hussein. When he would mention this, the first thing that she would say is, where was Abbas when Hussein was in this state? Why was Abbas not there? But then he would say, what about Zainab? Where is Zainab? And then he would say she became a prisoner for Bani Umayyah. She was in chains. So she would then run towards the house of Zainab and knock on the door. At this stage, Zainab had told Fizza. She had said, do not let anybody come inside. Why? Because we are in the state of mourning. People do not know what we went through. They are holding up a front. Try to imagine a few different things. Somebody that you love, your parents, your children, anybody that you want. When you go through things in life, sometimes you can't wait just to come towards that person so you can open up and explain what's happened. Zainab hasn't opened up yet. She hasn't had the chance to openly speak to somebody yet. She's gone through calamity upon calamity upon calamity to the extent that Baneen didn't even recognize Zainab. This woman has raised this girl, yet she didn't recognize her. Baneen rushes towards the house. She knocks on the door. Fizza answers the door. She goes back towards her. She says to Sayyidah Zainab, there is somebody here by the name of Baneen. She says, let Baneen come inside. Baneen is here to grieve with us. Baneen is a part of our tragedy. She would come inside. Baneen would be looking for Zainab. Where is Zainab? At that moment they say that they would see that there was a woman sitting down. Baneen would say, oh lady, do you know where Zainab is? That breaks the heart. This breaks the heart. A woman that had raised Zainab. She would look at him and say, Auntie Zainab al-Hashimiyya? Are you Zainab from the clan of Hashim? She would say, La ana Zainab al-Misbiya. I am Zainab, the one that was taken captive. They would then cry and she would say, Wa Abbasa. She would say, Wa Husayna. Tell me about Abul Fadl al-Abbas. She would tell him exactly what happened about Abbas. Then they would say, what happened to Hussein? When they spoke about Hussein, this broke the heart of Baneen. Until her death, after this incident, Baneen would just sit in Jannatul Baqi every single day. She would sit there and make 4 graves and then one more next to it. Every day she would say, La taduhu anni waiki Baneen. Do not call me Baneen any longer, for I have lost my boys. I am not the mother of sons anymore. But she would sit next to the grave that you created about Aba Abdullah, and she would cry and cry and cry. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيُّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. While we are just sitting here, think about what you needed. Think about Baneen. You're going to ask for something right now. You ask for that something right now. You ask for anything that you want, but make a promise to Baneen. Ya Baneen, if this happens, I will make a change. Whatever change you want, that's entirely up to you. But right now, ask Baneen. Just close your eyes. Take a few moments. Take a few seconds. Speak to Baneen. Tell her exactly what you want. Salawat. बर मोहम्मद वाले बैत मोहम्मद बुलंद तर सलावत। मोमिनीन, मुहर्रम का अशरा तेज़ी से गुज़र रहा है। हमें एहसास है कि आप थके हुए भी हैं और काफ़ी तवील मजलिस भी होती है, लेकिन चंद ही दिन का मेहमान है ज़हरा कलाल, और अल्लाह ताला हमारा ये पुरसा अपनी बारगाह में कबूल फरमाए और हमें सीरत मोहम्मद वाले बैत मोहम्मद पर चलने की तौफीक अता फरमाए। मोमिनीन जिन्होंने न्याज देनी है, अगर आप पूरी न्याज नहीं दे सकते, 10 पाउंड 20 पाउंड या आप कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहते हैं तो आप दे सकते हैं। उसके अलावा जिन्होंने न्याज लेनी है वो नोटिस बोर्ड पे लगा हुआ है। आज जिन मोमिनीन ने न्याज दी है उनके लिए एक दफ़ा सूरह फातिहा की दरख्वास्त है। नूर हुसैन शाह, कासम हुसैन शाह, आफ्ताब हुसैन शाह, निसार हुसैन शाह, फ़िदा हुसैन शाह, सुल्तान बीबी, सकीना बीबी, निसार फातिमा, तहसीन कौसर, सैयद असद रज़ा के मरहूमीन के लिए एक दफ़ा सूरह फातिहा और 3 दफ़ा सूरह इखलास की तिलावत फरमाएं। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन, अर्रहमानिर्रहीम, मालिकि यौमिद्दीन, इय्याका नअबुदु व इय्याका नस्तईन, इहदिनस सिरातल मुस्तक़ीम, सिरातल लज़ीना अनअमता अलैहिम गैरिल मग़दूबि अलैहिम वलद्दालिन। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, हुवल्लाहु अहद, अल्लाहुस समद, लम यलिद व लम यूलद व लम यकुल लहू कुफुवन अहद। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, कुल हुवल्लाहु अहद, अल्लाहुस समद, लम यलिद व लम यूलद व लम यकुल लहू कुफुवन अहद। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, कुल हुवल्लाहु अहद, अल्लाहुस समद, लम यलिद व लम यूलद व लम यकुल लहू कुफुवन अहद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। अब मैं ब्रदर ज़ामन अली ज़ामन काज़मी साहब से मुल्तमिसों की दुआएं और मसाइब मोहम्मद वाले बैत मोहम्मद बयान करें। फिर भी बुलंद सल्लल्लाहु
हुसैनियत जिंदाबाद, यजीदियत मुर्दाबाद, बावाज़े बुलंद सल्लल्लाहु
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
आऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। सलावत अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन। अस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अशरफिल अंबिया वल मुरसलीन। शफील मुज़निबीन व खातमिन नबिय्यीन बिल कासिम मोहम्मद। वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला हुसैनिल गरीब शहीद लशान बेरदे करबला। कफन कोई नहीं मिला, एक कफन नहीं मिला। इंदी भैन को चादर नहीं मिली। सदके वकील बतूल दे बचड़े दा। वकील बतूल दे बचड़े दा। ते जदा टुर कूफे तू पिया हो बौंदेर अब्बास बने जिंदे रुखसार चुमेदा। हो बौंदेर अब्बास बने जिंदे रुखसार चुमेदा। प्यो पुत्र जदा छुप गए नजरां तू ते आ भैन देखे मैं गया हो गल लाके भैन रुकैया नो प्यो फजल दा रोंदा। गल लाके भैन रुकैया नो प्यो फजल दा रोंदा। हुक्म होया जनाब मुस्लिम नु मुस्लिम बिरा तुसां कोफे वंजना। जनाब मुस्लिम दी आवाज है मेरा सरदार कलियां वंजना है। आवाज आदा कलियां नहीं वंजना, पुत्रां दी जोड़ी नाल लैके जनाब मुस्लिम दी आवाज है मेरा सरदार मेरे 6 पुत्र आए न। हुक्म करो केड़े पुत्रां नू नाल लैके वंजना। धा निकल गई है गरीबे करबला दी। मुस्लिम बिरा दे गल च बाहियां पाइयां। मुस्लिम बिरा दे पास के रो के मेरे मौला दी आवाज आई है उन्हां पुत्रां नू नाल लैके वंजना है जेड़े मां दे बगैर रात को समदे नहीं। सदके सद कोशिश करे ने उन्हां पुत्रां नू नाल वंजना है जेड़े मां दे बगैर रात को समदे नहीं। हाथ जोड़ के जनाबे मुस्लिम दे मेरा सरदार जिवें तुहाडा हुक्म वापस आए उत्थे आए जिथे मेरी सैन रुकैया मिट्टी ते बैठी हुई आई। हुण ए नहीं सो आख्या जो मैनू पुत्र डे, बस सोचना शुरू किया है जो पुत्र मां तू मंगा किवें। जिवें मेरा बिरा पिया पढ़दा है उम्मल बनी दी आई जान दी आई जो कूफे वंजण दा हुक्म है, यकदम लड़कना हलाया है। मुस्लिम वेख्या मुहम्मद भी तैयार है, इब्राहिम भी तैयार। दोवां पुत्रां दा हाथ मुस्लिम दे हाथ च न पा के मेरी सैन रो के आदी है मैं ए नहीं आदी ना वंज कूफे ते इयो मिन्नत कनीज ते लावे ओ मेरे बालां दा सिन छोटा वले जल्दी देर बेबे आदि आई मेरा छोटा पुत्र आई रात को डरदा सदके ते इको अपने कोल समावे हो प्यो इब्राहिम दा रब दे नाते मैं कोई ते पुत्र मिला। ओ प्यो इब्राहिम दा रब दे नाते मैं कोई ते पुत्र। हिंदुस्तान दे चंद मुअर्रख सारे नहीं चंद मुअर्रख लिखते ने अक्सर बीमार रांदी आई गाजी दी बहन इो दस लगा मुसलमाना अली दी सब तू छोटी ते दुखी दी नू उजाड़िया कीवे। अज मुस्लिम दे यतीमां दे वंडे दी मजलिस मुस्लिम दी जोड़ी दी मजलिस अल्लाह दी कायनात च ओ यतीम जिन्ना पूरे 3 डी प्यो दी लाश कूफे दियां गलियां च रुलदी दिठी। बहुत लंबा मजमून है बस इथों ही करीब तो शुरू कर लगा। बाबे दी मौत बाद जिदे वैन सारे जुल्म करें 3 या 4 डी कूफे दियां गलियां च रुलदे रहे जिन्नू पता लगदा है मुस्लिम दे बाल आए जालिम तमाचे मरें। ज़िलहज दा महीना है एक दिन रात नू मुस्लिम दे यतीम लुकदे लुकदे कूफे दे बाहरों एक जंगल च आके पहुंचे। जंगल च आके पहुंचा एक दरख्त दे उत्ते चढ़न दरख्त दे पत्तियां दे पिछे अपने जिस्म नू छुपाया। सुबह होई है हारस मलाउन दी नौकरानी तालाब विच पानी भरन दी गरज नाल आईए या यकदम वेख्या पानी विचों नूरानी अक्स नजर आया। दौड़दी अपने घर वापस आईए। हारस दी जोजना मोमना औरत आई है। हारस दी जोजा दे कोल आके आदिए जल्दी कर मेरे नाल तेनू 2 अरश दे वसदे जमीन ते मिलावां। हारस दी रोजा दौड़दी हारस दे कनीज दे नाल उत्थे आईए जिथे शहजादे दरख्त ते बैठे होए हैं। दरख्त दे थल्ले आके उच्ची हक्कल मार के आदिए तल्ले ले आओ किस मां दी झोली उजाड़ी। शहजादे जल्दी दे नाल थल्ले आए आवाज आदी है मैनू जल्दी दसो तुहानू मुहम्मद दा वास्ता। शहजादे आदन नहीं दसना जिन्नू दसने हाँ ओह ही जुल्म करें। आवाज आदे जल्दी दसो तुहानू मदीने आले अली दा वास्ता। शहजादे नहीं बोले हुण तीसरी हक्कल मारी है जल्दी दसो तुहानू गाजी अब्बास दा वास्ता। जेड़े वेले गाजी अब्बास दा नाम आया शहजादियां नू पक हो गया जो मोमना औरत है शहजादे आदन जेदा हुण नाम चाहे उस दे सक्के बने जे तड़प के ये हारिस दी ज़ौजा दी हाय मैं मरा मेरे पीर दी औलाद जंगलां च फिर उलदी है जल्दी दे नाल शहजादियां नू घर ले आइए सोना खाना पेश किया है ठंडा पानी दिता है सोना लिबास पवाया थके होया इन सफरां दे शहजादियां नू कमरे च लै गई सोना बिस्तर बना दिता है शहजादियां नू जल्दी नींदर आ गई या उन्होंने हारिस मगाउन पूरे दिन का थका होया जेड़े वेले अपने घर आया ना ते औरत दे पासे देख के आदे मुस्लिम दे यतीम नहीं लभदे औरत आदि क्यों यतीमां दे पीछे पै गए हैं उन्हें थोड़ा केड़ा कसूर किया है उस वेले औरत दे पासे देख के आदा है इब्ने ज़ियाद दा इनाम दा ऐलान होया है जो 500 दिनार मुस्लिम दे बालां दी कीमत पाई है हुण सोच लेना कि मुसलमाना कियो जा अजर दिता आदा 500 दिनार मुस्लिम दे बालां दी कीमत औरत आदि है मैनू जल्दी दे नाल पे के टोर में बिरावां दी सारी दौलत तेरे कदमां ते रखनी आ मैनू जल्दी पे के टोर में जगीरा लिखवा देनी आवाज आदा नहीं मुस्लिम दे बाल चाहिए अजे गल्लां नहीं मुकियां या कमरे विच रोवण दी आवाज आई ये आदा है कौन रोंदा है औरत आदि है किसे हमसाए दे बाल उस आदा नहीं ना दी आवाज तो लगदा है जो है मदीने दे वसदे जल्दी दे नाल कमरे दे अंदर आया है वेख्या है तो मुस्लिम दे बाल पलंग ते बैठे होया वड्डा छोटे नू प्याद है हुण सानू कुछ कोई भी कुछ नहीं आदा हुण असी मोमना औरत दे घर या इस हरामी जल्दी दे नाल वड्डे शहजादे नू वालां चू पकड़िया छोटे शहजादे नू दूसरे हथ नाल वालां चू पकड़िया कमरे तो बाहर एक थम दे नाल ले आया उस वेले वड्डे शहजादे दी आवाज है ये हारिसा क्यों जुल्म प्या करेंदा है कोई वक्त याद है आवाज आदा है केड़ा वक्त आवाज आदा है अज तू 20 साल पहले साडे नाने अली दे इसे कूफे च हुकूमत आई हारिसा तू साडे मामे अब्बास दे घोड़े दा निगरान आवे हारिसा तेनू अपनी रिश्तेदारी विच रिश्ता कोई न देंदा मोमना औरत जेड़ी सानू तेरे घर ले आई है साडे मामे अब्बास दे वसीले नाल तेनू मिली हारिसा इसे थम दे बारू साडा मामा खलोता हा इसे थम ते साडा मामा आके ना तेरे घर एक दिन रो पिया ते रो के तेनू आख्या हारिसा याद रखी वक्त बदलदे रहंदे नी थम्मा नाल हैवान बनदे ने इंसानां नू कोई नहीं बनदा बिस्मिल्लाह करो बिस्मिल्लाह करो आदा इतना जल्दी नमक हराम हो गया आवाज आदा नहीं मनेंदा हुण मैं नहीं दसना जो सारी रात करेंदा किरिया है बस इतना कुछ पिया आदा मुस्लिम दे यतीम सारी रात थम नाल बजे सुबह हुई इमलाउन तलवार चाहिए से एक हाथ इस तलवार पकड़िए दूसरे हाथ शहजादियां नू पकड़िया से आदा इन्हों दरिया दी सैर कराउण वास्ते ले वैन औरत मोमना ही अगे वध के आदि बहाने ना बना मैनू पता है तू इन्हों कतल करने वास्ते ले वैन आदि ना ले जा जड़े वेले बार बार आख्या ना ले जा इस तलवार औरत दे सारे च मारी है हारिस दी 4 सालां दी मकान दी छत जड़ी है आदि लोगों कहंदा वस लगदा है ते लाओ साडे घर च मेहमान पे मरी ने शहजादियां नू दरिया दे किनारे ते ले आए दरिया दे किनारे ते ले आया आदे चोले लहाओ शहजादे आदे ने चोले क्यों उतरवे ने आवाज आदा कत्ल करना है इब्ने ज़ियाद इनाम दा लालच शहजादे आदन इनाम दे लालच च सानू कत्ल न कर सानू वतन ते मां कोल पुंजा असां सुनिया है असां दा सफर च बाबे दे नाल आए असां सुनिया है जिहड़ी पिछली ईद गुजरी साडे मामे अब्बास साडियां भैणां नूं यमन चों दुर मंगा दित्ते हन जिन्हां दुरां नाल कई वार मुल्क यमन आबाद होंदा है साडियां भैणां उदास ने जदा तैनूं एक संजनू दुर लहाड़े सन बगैर दादे ना मंजूर शहजादे आदन साडी दूजी तजवीज़ है कत्ल न कर बाजार च यूसुफ तो थोड़े मुलदे बगैर दादे ना मंजूर शहजादे आदन साड़ी तीजी तजवीज़ कत्ल न कर इब्ने ज़ियाद तो पेश कर दे भावें छोड़ दे भावें कत्ल करा दे बगैर दादे ए भी ना मंजूर है तलवार जाके वड्डे दे नेड़े आया निके गर्दन गा कीती है आदा जे मारना ही तो पहले मैनू मार मेरा वड्डा वीर जदा वतन तो टुरिया माया दे आई ख्याल करें वड्डे बिरा प्यो दी पग दे वारस हो तलवार जाके हुण निके दे नेड़े आया उन्होंने वड्डे गर्दन गा कीती है आवाज आदा जे मारना ही था पहले मैनू मार निके बिरा औलाद जगह होंदा तलवार जाके वड्डे दे नेड़े आंदा निक्का गर्दन के करेंदा निके दे नेड़े आंदा वड्डा गर्दन के करेंदा होर ता वस नहीं से चलिया अल्लाह जाने छोटे शहजादे नू किथों पकड़िया इस किस रंग चजरे रिसालत दिता इस वड्डे दी आवाज ये इथे न मारो इथे मां बोसे देंदी है सदके ओ जालिम इथे न मार सारा सारा ढीमा चुमदे आई जुल्म दे बाद निका मिट्टी ते जड़ गया है वड्डे दा मुंह पासे मदीने दे फिर गया है ते रो रो के आदा नित मान करेंदे हावे अम्मा ओ साडे सामने पे के घर दा ओ मेरे वीर अब्बास दी तेग कोलू है शाम ते कूफा ओ जे आप नहीं आ संग दी अम्मा ओ मजबूर करें दई पर्दा ओ जरा भेज जलालियां वाले नू सर सदका अलियक आखिरी वैन निक्का मिट्टी ते जड़िया होया है जुल्म करे ना है जुल्म करे ना है वड्डा विरा नेड़े आके आदा ओ जे ए आदई ते लहजा चोला तेरा देख नहीं सजना दा ओ साडा मामा गालिया नहीं संगदा इथों सफर हडेर सुनाओ छोटे छोटे दी आवाज आई मैं तू गांड नहीं कोल दिए झड़काड़ ओ मैं तू गांड नहीं कोल दिए झड़काड़ दे ओ मेरा हावे दे घबरांदा ओ अज अमड़ी कोई नहीं तू ही दस है किवें चोला मुंह करके तरफ मदीने रोया रज करन मस्कीने मुंह करके तरफ मदीने रोया रज करन मस्कीने सर आई मौत जफा वो मामा रुल गया ओ सर आई मौत जफा वे मामा रुल गया सारे मातम पे करें दे मातम करें दे मैं अगला वैन पे करें ना ओ साड़ियां विंगरियां चोटियां साड़ियां विंगरियां चोटियां मां बाद किसे नहीं दोतियां ओ मां बाद किसे नहीं दोतियां गया हाथ हारिस दे वो मामा रुल गया ओ साड़ियां विंगरियां चोटियां गलियां ओ गया हाथ हारस दे वो मामा रुल गया मातम हुसैन